My name is Abbas Kamruddin. I'm the chairman of the Federation of IT Industry Sri Lanka. And I'm going to be moderating today's session, which is on skills for a digitally inclusive future workforce. I'm sure it's going to be a very enthralling session. We've got a very eminent set of panelists. Today we have with us, right at the extreme right, we have Mr. Hasitha Abeywardena, Country Manager, Microsoft, Sri Lanka and Maldives. Next to him, we have Samira Jayawardena, Director, Capacity Building, ICTA. And over here, we have Chandi Dharmaratne, Vice President, HR for a global tech company. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And what I would like to do is, before we start things off, I'd like to give you a preamble as to what this discussion is all about. So, the discussion is about where we're heading, and we've been talking throughout the last few hours, or at least even yesterday, we've been talking a lot about where the digital economy is heading and what to expect of the digital economy and the drive towards a thriving digital economy, what we as citizens could expect over the next 2 to 3 years and next to 5 to 7 years, and what are the policies and frameworks that need to be developed to ensure that Sri Lanka is ready for this digital revolution or this digital economic revolution that's going to be happening in order for us to stay relevant. So with the rapid uptake of technologies such as robotic process automation, robotics, AI and augmented reality, these are some of the more technical words that we hear. And this is going to be applicable to every sector of the economy, be it service providers, manufacturers, corporates or self-employed individuals. The skill set requirement for the future workforce is going to vastly be different from what we recognize as the requirements of today. So, the session aims to identify what are the key drivers of change that would impact workforce skills in the short term, which I would consider as between 2 to 3 years, and in the long run, 5 to 7 years. And what are some of these critical skill sets that have been identified, and how do we make sure that we are skilled up to make sure that we are skilled up and ready, and the workforce, our workforce as employers are ready to take on the challenges of the next upcoming years in aspects of digital element of it. So with that said, I would like to start off my questions, and maybe to set things into perspective, I would like to pose my first question to Hasitha, and that would be to basically to get an understanding of what exactly are we really looking at. There's a lot of hype, there's a lot of myth, and there's the reality. So Hasitha, based on your extensive experience with regards to working with Sri Lanka's large, medium, and even the small scale enterprises across the board, what are the traditional changes that you would expect the workplace to see in the next few years, next coming years, basically the next 2 to 3 years, as well as the next 5 to 7 years? What can the general workforce expect to be challenged with in aspects of digital element of it? What would they expect to be challenged with in the next coming years?
Right, okay. Thanks a lot, Abbas. Thanks a lot, team. Thank you. Am I well heard, firstly?
Yes,
okay, thanks a lot. I'm sure there are a lot of people who had logged in at this time. Before answering your question, I think I have about 5 minutes, right? Okay, let me just take you. I heard Abbas, this was address in the morning. A little significant to me personally, because I think 25 years back, 26.
Yes, 25.
Today, like a day like today, I was part of the team who dialed out on a 9.6 kbps. So we know we have FTTH and 4G and coming 5G. 25 years back, that's exactly what we had, and I'm so humble, proud, whatever you want to call it, to be part of that team. And then Channa was leading the tech. So this is the start of Lanka Internet. So good, and thanks a lot for inviting me. Getting back to your question, so what is changing? Right? So let me break this down into 3 areas. Horizon 1, here and now, what do we do? 2 to 3 years, that's probably the relevant discussion here. And if we have a mirror ball and 5 and 7, horizon 3 important area. We know where it's going. So my take now is from even students to CEOs, students, parents, CEOs, tech leaders are on this forum. Right? So we'll try and frame this, which is relevant to all of you who spend your time at 12:30 and listening to us. So first thing is, I'll take back to try and use Microsoft minimally, but then our CEO last year around this time said 2 years of digital transformation happened in 2 months. So he said this in May last year. I thought that was quite profound. Right? So we were anyway in a journey toward digital. Right? We started, like you can say, 25 years back. I mean, there is no other nation close by, right, who had our infrastructure. I mean, thanks to what we have got, right? Be it politicians who deregulated the market to SLT to dialogue, let's give it to them. We have perfect infrastructure. We've also had companies like Chandi working for, giving us leadership, saying we can be anything in terms of tech. NASDAQ listed companies. We also had, at the same time, FITIS, the SLASCOM, all these associations who bring this thing. And we still had, on the tech side, capacity as an issue. So we discussed this also, Samira. So capacity has always been an issue. And people have, like the large companies, IT companies from Sri Lanka had looked out to India no further to build that capacity. So there is something we need to address. Now that's on the tech side, but coming back, what happened last year is happened at home, right? We do experience that day in, day out. So suddenly COVID put this, I mean, this will be very familiar. You heard this, you heard about new norm. Let me frame it again, right? Let me say that again, why it is relevant to horizon 2 and 3 into the future. So we started using our little machine, which we always browse, morning, day and night. This was only our savior. We all agree, right? We now was, instead of browsing this, started ordering what is the most essential, probably even water, right? Apart from air to breathe, everything else we try to do using this. That's the reality. And also over, say, a couple of months, so you order food, right? That is called not really digital, maybe phygital. You order food, it arrives, you are happy, you are eating now. Because COVID tells us, don't get out, there is curfew, there is forces. I mean, we know curfew, how impactful it is. So government did a good job taking control, but also we had infrastructure, we had mobile, we got used to, and we were actually forced. This is why I always say, COVID for Sri Lanka, probably don't repeat this, it's a good thing. I don't know, as I would like it to happen, right? We took control of it. We now have a situation where we have an opportunity as much as it's a challenge. Okay, so let me get to, so horizon 1 is we all experience. We don't value anyone again who use a mobile app. We'll go back to the bank. Probably not. Right? There was huge, I cry about the two big supermarkets not being able to ramp up. They did quite very well. Yeah. They were challenged, they came up very well, right? We supported actually both parties. And eventually, we actually was fortunate ourselves, the schools went online. Schools went online. So this is exactly what happened 1 year back. I'm just repeating it to my CEO's point that we were pressurized to do that, right? So anyway, something, so we're pressurized to do that. Maybe we are not going to come back. Digital is here to stay. We started working differently. That's what I'm saying. So the mothers have to, for example, get their children to log in to Teams, and they themselves log into Teams, or whatever the Google, or whatever the platform they are using. Let me bring competition's name also. And that's a challenge, but that's a reality, right? People who were stuck in Sri Lanka serving US without any problem could serve. Person from Anuradhapura or wherever. So I have someone working for us in Microsoft. Now he's calling. Right? So Prabhat, right? He works, he was stuck in Kuragala, right? He runs our actually skills initiative, right? All the kids here knows Prabhat. We didn't feel that he is operating from there. So we had the infrastructure, we had this thing. So that brings us to our real question here, if I was digressing, to why now skilling is important, right? Now, so we get into Horizon 2 and saying we're not going to go back to what it was. We call it new norm or whatever we call it now. Horizon 2 is, Horizon 1 is important, right? We can't close the shop, no. We need to operate as it is. But Horizon 2 is more about what is changing. So we, Microsoft and IDC, did a survey. You can tell it's wrong. But roughly speaking, 3 things were happening as back 2 years, this research was, IDC and Microsoft. The research, Abbas, which said was that this is global, right? I think McKinsey has done it. A lot of people have done the same thing. But just general knowledge, I'm quoting our own research. A good 30% of the jobs, Chandi would comment later whether it's true, is going to just vanish. In the near, let's say the Horizon 2 and then touching 3 we're talking about. They are not going to be there. So for example, I told you, bank teller is going to be non-existence. Right? We have an amazing app today we are using from our mobile operator. Why would anyone want to visit the center? If it was your supermarket service, you from the tapping of your mobile phone, whatever it is, smartphone, why would you visit? Right? So that's the reality. And why I'm bringing it up is, if anyone is thinking of becoming a bank teller, bank telling is good, right? They're doing a service. That's not a future job. You shouldn't be thinking ever saying, I'm going to go join a bank because that's a cool job, etc. Actually, even teaching would change. Right? So we can get to that later. How am I on time?
I think we're almost done. So
we're almost done. So the message, I'm sorry if I'm taking little time. So the Horizon 3 is what we said is this one. So what we need to do is, the question now is, if this is the change. So second area, change. Second area is that your current jobs would go in through a transformation. You have to retrain yourself. So 30% vanish, you still have a job, certain people. You got to retrain and get that additional skills. Third is the most important, is there will be emergence of new opportunities, new industries. Now, we don't think like that. Right? Sometimes as a nation, we don't think like that. There will be massive opportunity. That's why I said at the start, there is an opportunity. So with that, let me stop. We can revisit it. Thanks a lot, team.
Thanks, Hasitha. I think that you have kind of touched upon at a very high level what we could expect and what we need to watch out for, I think more importantly, if we are to stay relevant. So in line with what Hasitha discussed, my next question would be to Samira. Samira, how would these changes highlighted by Hasitha at a ground level translate to skill set requirements? So what are the skill sets required by an employee to navigate the corporate world of the future? With these jobs dropping off, with the new opportunities coming up, what are the skill sets that you foresee would be the requirement in the next few years? Over to you, Samira.
Yeah, thank you, Abbas. So I think I'll start from where Hasitha has stopped. I think he has nicely pitched where are we right now. So the good thing is, I mean, we always preach we have like very competent people in Sri Lanka, and those who have good analytical skills, and the best thing we have is our people. So I think this is a prime time for us to understand and navigate them towards like massive transformation in terms of building, upskilling, maybe reskilling themselves, and to facilitate the transformation what he has just stated. Now there are two aspects of it, I believe. So one thing about how they're going to survive as an employee, current employee, how you going to survive and carry on your work with the so-called new normal or post-COVID era. Then second thing, there are a lot of opportunities will arise. So how are we going to exploit those opportunities and get into the local and global markets and get your skills uplifted and get into the transformational cycle. So for that, I think recently World Economic Forum, they have published a set of like skills required, desired skills required for 2025. They forecasted after this. I mean, I'll tell about maybe 3 things which I think would be some of the key things we may have to consider in terms of our Sri Lankan context. Like the first thing is how they're going to positively embrace this. Now that's a fact. People will tend to believe, how you're going to survive yourself in this environment. So that is one thing. I mean, you have to positively embrace the entire transformation and you should adopt yourself. So to do that, definitely you have to do 2 things. At least, maybe you have to uplift your skills. That's, upskilling. As he stated, irrespective of the position or where are you fitting in the hierarchy, you have to upskill yourself to survive. That is for the survival. But the next thing is how are you going to reskill? Now this is highly applied. I mean, we can discuss about the public sector transformation. Now, I mean, ICT has embarked some of the work during like early stages in 2020 when this everything started with this COVID outbreak. So 3 aspects we looked at. One about the education sector transformation. How are we going to facilitate this to make use of this post-COVID situation and to push this digital education efforts into education sector. Good to see there are a lot of initiatives are being embarked and hopefully it will move on. And the second thing is about the government sector. There you require actually a certain set of skills. As I told initially, it's about first you have to realize there's an issue. You have to understand there's an issue. You have to understand there's a requirement for upskilling and reskilling. So that's very important. But I think private sector doesn't have that issue because I mean you're going with I mean it's very dynamic. The nature of the private sector, they understand that requirement and they'll address it. The public sector, that is the first. Thank you. Private sector, public sector, that's the essential thing we need to realize and work on it. In terms of corporate world, I mean we have already started. Actually initiated one survey on supply side. I mean, we always preach about demand and supply gap. So, I mean, with this, the gaps will be, affected. It will get changed, and new skills profiles will be, developed, and there will be a lot of ways to bridge the desired, profiles and the actual skill sets. So, I think that is one of the other areas we can focus on. I think the main thing would be, if I wrap it up with 3 things. First thing would be upskilling and reskilling. And the second thing is like innovative learning. And it's about active learning. How we going to engage actively in learning process? I mean, we have seen, especially with the corporate sector partnerships, we have seen people have started their own, ways and means of learning, acquiring new skills. So, I mean, there are a lot of opportunities from, online learning materials and courses. There are a lot of opportunities if you know how to use it. I mean, you could have improved yourself significantly. So, with that, there comes the third challenge. So if we talk about the entire society, so digital literacy matters. Digital literacy doesn't mean like how do you switch on a computer, switch off a computer. It's all about how we're going to utilize digital technologies for significant, so some of the useful work for your own purposes. So if we take education, so I think that will be one of the key areas you can concentrate even within the corporate sector or the government or the public to improve the competency. So embrace this change positively would be the third factor I would like to highlight. Hope the
Sure.
chances.
Thank you, Samira. So I think it's very clear that the world is going to be very different, and there are many skills, including the ability to change. And Samira has covered. So things like, I think in the future, things like being able to collaborate virtually, being able to work extensively, alone in your own environment, in elements of making sure that you have a design thinking mindset, a logical thinking mindset when you're working with various different technologies. These are some of the skills that I think that any individual would need to develop in order to work in the future workplace. And like Samira mentioned, it's important that they also learn how to change this as we go along. So my next question, in line with the same thought process, is for Chandi. So Chandi, practically, I mean, we talked about what's required, but it's a whole different scenario when it comes to actually practically applying it. That's where the real challenge comes in. So how do organizations actually go about applying the process? Most organizations don't. Some organizations do. Some organizations don't have a clear-cut skills gap analysis, as well as identifying how to develop their skill sets, their internal, their staff's skill sets to the required levels, and do it consistently. So how would you suggest that organizations go about doing this? If you could elaborate on that.
Sure, but
Thanks.
can I just touch upon a little bit on what
Please.
Hasitha
Sure.
said as well?
Sure.
So I have more data to support what Hasitha said about
Sure.
how some jobs are going to vanish. And then Samira, you mentioned about the World Economic Forum report. And luckily I have this data
Yeah.
where in the World Economic Forum report, they actually tell how 65% of the kids entering primary education are going to be doing jobs that doesn't exist today.
Absolutely.
So that
Yeah.
is favoring what you just said.
Yeah.
And then you talked about how new jobs are coming in. And there's an example I read in a Forbes article about a company called ING in Australia, how they had a role called customer journey executives. They didn't have that position 2 years ago. And they quickly needed, because of the dynamism of the generations or the requirement of the customers to have a more intimate relationship when they come to the bank. So they quickly had to deploy 20 customer journey experts or executives.
Nice.
So they had proactively started building that in order for them to execute it. So to the point that you made, Samira, about the requirement of going and learning, they say from March 2020 to June 2020, Coursera courses have increased by 600%. And I think you mentioned it, saying how organizations, and it's not individuals going into these programs, it's companies or institutions going and bringing in programs for their employees. And the top 10 programs that people have gone and gotten in 2019 were mainly technical. And in 2020, it's mainly soft skills.
Nice.
So that's also, I think, very interesting.
Right.
So with that, going back to the question, Abbas, about what companies can do, I think it's also important to understand when we say, reskilling and cross-skilling, there are a lot of, words used. And I think a lot of organizations looks at it as right skilling as well.
Right.
Because some skills that, for example, if you take UI, UX, a hard skill, it's not that we need to really change it, or we need to relearn it, or we need to upskill it. I think it's more about reshaping it.
Right.
For example, looking at the dynamism of the customer, requirement, or looking at how devices change, or looking at how the competition has changed. There is a quick rechange or reshaping of how you now use it and how you can deliver what the customers are looking for is going to change. So even if you really go and learn that hard skill, or you upskill it or you reskill it, the undermining thing is you also have to understand a lot of other things in order for it to be practical. So organizations are looking at, yes, upskilling, cross-skilling, right skilling, and at the same time, it's important to look at the right cognitive skills of their employees to make sure that you can use that in a real-time example. For example, cognitive skills like agility, behavioral agility of an employee, the what do you call it, adaptability, grit, growth mindset versus fixed mindset, EQ, creativity and innovation. So there are a lot of cognitive skills that employers should look at the point of hiring. Plus, a very important part is the ethical employee with the right value system. So all of those things together is what employers are looking at to make sure that they develop in their organization. There are a lot of other examples as well. They are also talking about a lot of learning platforms that are real-time learning platforms where the learning is actually partnered. It is relevant to the employee and the organization journey, and it's also partnered by the leadership and the learning teams in those organizations.
Yeah.
And they say, even when you do a right skilling program, there was this interesting article about the future learning journeys. So one organization, a telco, has done a program where they've identified 1,000 employees and created 10 learning journeys in 10 months. So they have started right skilling these employees, but they also made sure that the people they have been managed by are being appointed to manage them because they have been right skilled as well.
Right.
So it's really important that it is a trickle down effect that's happening.
Yeah.
And also when you do right skill or you cross skill or you upskill, it's also important that that employee can quickly go and apply that knowledge. Because there's a forgetful curve. There is a theory that says that if you learn something, within 6 days, if you're not in a position to apply it, that you forget 75% of it.
Right.
So it's important when organizations are putting together programs that you look at all of these aspects in right skilling your employees. There are so many other examples. So some companies work on internal fulfillment. They make sure they constantly have a pool of people who are ready with the right cognitive skills and the technical skills. When a requirement comes up, they have a percentage that's been measured where they can internally fulfill into those positions. So you have now an employee with the right value set and the right knowledge of the organization servicing a client. Then you have now organizations looking at more personalized journeys, bite-sized learning, continuous learning for their employees versus putting them on a training program and they come back after 6 months or 2 months. So those are some of the things that organizations are doing right now, Abbas.
Thanks, Chandi. I think that's a lovely way of looking at it. Rather than trying to figure out the specific skill set, you first develop the cognitive skill sets of your team so that they are ready to adapt, to self-learn, and to also understand how to go about developing themselves personally. And that automatically makes the journey so much easier in terms of
Yes. Just
right?
two more things that I forgot I thought is very important.
Yeah.
Is some organizations are actually, when they're doing these learning journeys,
Yes.
they are putting their employees who might have 4, 5 years or 10 years of experience, now they're upskilled. So now they put them as an intern in the company.
Right. Okay.
So, so that whole, the concept of, a mature employee going and interning in a certain area, and also link in the reward mechanism, and appreciation mechanism to the employees who are more agile and quick to learn.
Okay.
And so that was another interesting thing. And another interesting that I saw was that, they say, if you have a platform, a learning platform where you're offering multiple learnings, that you think is important to the organization, don't worry what employees are going and learning.
Yes.
Let them go and learn.
Absolutely.
Because any learning is a good learning, because learning is also a skill.
Got it.
So if they keep honing that skill, they will definitely continue that.
Yep.
Great, Chandi. I think that's a great idea if you can intern someone who's been there with the organization for 10 years. Although I'm not too sure if our culture would allow that, the personalities, the egos that would come into play. But I think that as we go along, I think the next generation should get ready for that kind of thing, and they should understand the importance of how the relevance and the period of relevance of any skill, right? And if they understand that, and that is well understood, obviously they would be willing to do that element of internship as a development of the self-development ability. So there's some great ideas. I mean, great ideas for organizations to take forward, for individuals who are working for organizations to take forward, and that's great. So, I mean, in line with this, my next question would be to Hasitha. Hasitha, what is the industry's role? And let's say, as Microsoft, what do you think the organizations within the ICT sector's role is in terms of helping organizations out there to upskill themselves as far as digital goes? What has Microsoft been doing in that space?
Okay. So, yeah, thanks. Try to, there are a few things I noted down, but then let me touch on few things which were stated connected to this question, right?
Yeah.
So, you talk about industry. What can industry do, right? So, I started off saying industry has been talking about 1 billion revenue
Yeah.
as a tech industry. Take one example of engineering tech industry and wanting to make it 5 billion.
That's right. Yes.
And how long we've been talking about it? For a long time. So while I'm agreeing with you, Samir, I think we got to open our eyes and accept. Someone said, firstly, accept, right? There is room for improvement, clearly. I mean, we've done well, it's okay, let's not relax. And not, to Abbas' point, maybe you shouldn't leave this to the next generation. We have an opportunity now, right? So how do we, as an ecosystem, grab this opportunity, making sure, to Chandi's point, that when we teach, when you are actually teaching unborn children today, we teach them the right thing. So in terms of, and one more point also which you brought up is that doesn't mean that everything is doomed, gone, right? I'm a mature employee, to your point. Experience matters still. It's just that you rename, and then probably you will be the leader, right? Go and watch what's the Google film? Intern. Watch Intern, what happens, right? That's a mature guy is trying to, in a nice way, lead a startup. It's a nice film, right? That tells us a lot of things. Other thing is, on the learning side, we need to show, I'm saying as an industry, be it Microsoft or whoever operates in the country, and the /com as an ecosystem, which is whatever, right? To, I think, pressurize the system that this is the new jobs which is coming up. We have done it, not enough. Right? Saying, I mean, if you are not teaching these skills to university students, then we are saying bye to the industry. It's about your, I think we are not living in a world of we are all self-sufficient. I mean, let's accept that. Right? This is all about being competitive as an individual. You get recruited, they will, you said cognitive skills, you were talking about it, Chandi. As an individual, can we accept, this is what I'm going to do, right? And also as parents, as this thing. So we can do so much, we can put pressure, I'm saying, as an ecosystem. But there is a lot as an organization has to also do as much as we show, say, as an industry. So, for example, we have this initiative called, I mean, I don't want to talk about it. Now, we can post it later, get them to do that. Microsoft Skills Initiative. Okay. So, we can do all that. This has been done. I mean, SASCOM has done a lot. FITIS has done a lot. The entire community has done a lot, right? But I think we can do more because we are talking about Sri Lanka, an organization of ours, being more competitive. You can't just, even because I'm catering to this market local, you can't sit on laurels and wait, right? Because next door guy probably will get smart. And to your point, the second thing is the culture, right? If it has to change, it has to change.
Of course.
It has to change, right? And we should push that. This is the culture. Because in a virtual world, right, you don't need all these layers, right? for example. You don't need that layers. Now you're in a group, like on a WhatsApp, you're in a group, right? So CEO knows what's going on. And you have access to the CEO. So now you don't need a general manager, a supervisor, another person, and another person. They can do different things. Work will still happen faster, more efficiently, and primarily serving the customer better. So my take is, if I probably don't have much time here, we can, I mean, this question brings it up, what can industry do, which is a relevant question. We can do it as an ecosystem. As an industry, as companies, we can show the way. We can take the horse to the water, we will do that. There is drinking bit also. Yeah, so with that.
Sure. Thanks, Hasitha, for that. Very clear in terms of what is the role that the industry and the members of the industry have to play. So I've got probably with 10 minutes remaining, I'd like to go into probably one of the most pertinent questions and that links to our outcome of this session. And that is, so we understand that there is a need to upskill digitally the workforce that is currently working within the ecosystem. And we have obviously covered a lot about what the future workforce has to do in different sessions. I believe, Samir, you've been involved in some of those as well. But in addressing the actual current workforce and how to look at upskilling them, I think it's very obvious that we need a very clear-cut policy and framework in terms of, and we need to be very clear, and this needs to be communicated to all the relevant sectors of the workforce, be it teachers, be it the corporate sector, be it the public sector, all the elements, and clearly give them, demarcate them, say that these are the skill sets that you need to develop. And obviously some of the cognitive skills should be leading that whole framework as to these are the things that need to be developed, and give them also some direction. So in line with that, I would like to hear from all of you all as to what it is. So maybe Chandi, maybe you could go first and give us an idea about what your thoughts are in terms of this framework and policy that needs to be developed.
Sure. So my belief is, Abbas, if we are going into a framework, we need to make sure it's an integrated framework.
Right.
It has to be integrated, government, the PVET system, the private sector, the different industries, the education sector, the private organizations and the public, the government organizations, all education sector has to come together, and there has to be an integrated solution. And we should not forget that when we are having this discussion, it's not just for the kids or the people who are in Colombo or in the suburbs. If we are coming up with a national policy, it has to be something that is reaching all people, all the kids. Yep. So access to information. Giving them information that helps them to decide on what kind of a career path that they can take.
Of course.
And that the only way that you are going to have that reach is if you are going to have it on a platform that is accessible to them. So my take is that. So you need to have it on a platform that is accessible to all people, to understand about the career options, about what they need to do, about industry information, in order to make their decision about what choices that they have, access to information. And when you're giving that access to information, multiple discussions that I have had on this topic, the best place to start is, I know there are other countries, through a discussion that I had earlier, I found out countries like Canada, they have a platform, a unified platform where they give all job opportunities in the country in one location. So that is access to information to anyone living anywhere. They can see that in Sri Lanka. Also, opportunities that are there overseas. And the opportunities does not only mean a guy who is coming into the IT industry or a big industry. It could be a mason boss. It could be a mechanic who is trying to do a vocational training program and go to Japan for a better life for him or his children. He should also understand what kind of job opportunities are there for him. If I have this qualification, I can get this. Then you can go into another level saying, okay, in order to get this qualification, this is where you can go. But there should be a start, and I think the start is just giving access to information about what opportunities are there.
Lovely. So I think you said it well. It's not just important to just create a framework and a policy, but it's also important to create the platform where they could actually be able to develop the skills using that platform at least in one place and be able to develop the skills. And because we are not just talking about the corporates here, we're talking about everyone from someone, a farmer to a mechanic to whatever it is. Well noted and point taken, Chandi. Great idea. So maybe I could ask Hasitha for, since we've got 5 minutes remaining, maybe just give us your thoughts within the next 2 minutes on this subject.
Yep, thanks. I jotted down a few things otherwise, so I'll stick to time. So firstly, opportunity, right? So inclusivity was just touched, right?
Yeah.
If we are looking at opportunity, let's look for all the kids.
Yes.
And that's the bottom line. Earlier, if you know what was the opportunity, you need to go to a good school. You need to know English. Right? Now, if you know English and you know what we talk about, technology, right? Skills this way, that's your opportunity. No one can stop you becoming, you've seen that, the president of USA.
Yes.
That's the opportunity, right? So this is about your opportunity, and to your point, Chandi, it has to be inclusive to everyone. Number two, we talked about a framework before. So I am not going to repeat what was said, no, what will be said, will be told. A framework for me starts at home, start with you, right? So we, children or kids, parents who is allowing doing it themselves, we spend a lot of time looking at the screen. Two screens. We have a big screen, which is called the TV. We have a small screen, which is this thing. We spend a lot of time, guys, right? There's another screen we need to go to. What we're doing is we're consuming information, and I say this word I'll come to, is leadership. We are looking at leaders. So really you will find yourself in TV, right? You're looking for something. You won't. So where do you find yourself? Is your mirror. You go to the mirror firstly, every day if you can, and ask, firstly, am I accepting this? I need things to improve. Right? And that's sometime you have to find leadership. You can say, associations has to do, these organizations have to do, do you accept as students, parents, there is something which is going to happen? Do you accept as organizations, individuals, that things are changing? I need to improve myself. So if you say, and do something today, so that's where I will stop.
Great. Thank you.
We are not going to get an opportunity like this again.
Great.
It is an opportunity like I started off. Right?
Thank you so
COVID
much,
brought us
Hasitha.
a new opportunity. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you,
a lot.
Hasitha. Great. So I've got probably all this falls in the lap of you, Samira. So the task is at hand is how do you create a framework and how do you make sure that this skills framework is, actionable. So over to you, maybe you could give us some insights and thoughts and what is the future action plans that you have in mind.
Yeah, great. Thank you, and highly appreciated. +1 for both, lady and gentleman, what they spoke about. So I think these are prime time. I mean, it's a good time for us to really nail it. So good thing is, I believe ICT is first time we are looking at holistically, and we have started the journey with the new digital transformation strategy. The capacity building has been considered as one of the prime areas which will facilitate across the board. So in that sense, I think what Chandi has stated, the inclusiveness, the equity are very essential things we have to consider. And also we have to ensure the entire spectrum is get involved. It's not in isolation. I mean, what we have seen was even we have started some of the work with some of the entities. I think you also engaged with some of these. So there are a lot of siloed initiatives, and there are a lot of good things happening in the ecosystem, as Hasitha stated. Different entities like SLASCOM, FITIS, CSSL, BCAs, and you name it. So different entities do a lot of good things, and government agencies and NGOs and everybody. So that is good. But what we are trying to do, I mean, how we understand our role, ICT's role in this space. So we are trying to facilitate, and we will be the facilitator which brings in all the stakeholders, and we'll facilitate for a more fruitful engagement towards a framework, what you just discussed, the kind of it's a framework which facilitates a rapid transformation of the people at all levels. So, I mean, I'll give you an example how we look at it. Now, I mean, even if you are in Anuradhapura, you can be a teacher or a mason bath or a farmer or somebody else. That there are certain things, I mean, you should be able to see from the platform or the skills plateau. You have to understand, you can, acquire the skills, and there'll be a lot of opportunities for them to work with. So the only three things I'll mention, so with the interest of time. One thing is no wrong entry. So everybody should be able to have access as per their existing, capacities and desired capacities, and they should be able to, get into that point. And then we see collaboration, partnership would be the key to success. I mean, ICTA won't be able to drive anything alone. So it will be all with partnerships and collaboration with all stakeholders, what we stated. And the future, it's all about embrace this. I'm repeating the same thing because we have been working with the community and the government. What we have seen is lack of understanding. I mean, what Chandi has correctly stated, what Hasitha has stated. So I think this is known maybe within the industry up to a certain extent. But if you go to the masses, sometimes they still don't realize that. So there's a massive requirement, even from ICTA or the policymakers or the government, to ensure the entire spectrum of the society, including the industry and the non-IT industry, to understand there's a requirement and how you're going to embrace this positively and use this to make yourself transform into a better state. So that's where are we heading. So we are trying to facilitate both the framework and policies and the platform. So everything in collaboration, and some of the stuff, I mean, have already started. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. It's a collaborative effort. Yep. So ICT will be the facilitator.
Fantastic, lovely. That was a great outcome that what we were expecting out of this session. So thank you so much, Samira. So with that, we would like to end today's session, and I would like a really hearty thanks to Hasitha, to Samira and to Chandi. I think it's been a very valuable and insightful session. And thank you very much to all of you for being part of this. And with that, we would like to thank the audience as well, and wishing you all the best.